to Healing and Wellness in Times of Crisis. My name is Charlotte Jones, and I am the resident mental health expert with the Dr. Maya Angelou Foundation. Today, we are going to be discussing strategies to keep you and your family safe during COVID-19. I don't know about you guys, but I've been really confused by all the recommendations that have been put out by the CDC and other agencies. So today we're going to be talking with Dr. Nancy Mignon to really get a better understanding of how we can protect ourselves during this time. Hello, Dr. Mignon. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I just was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice.
So I'm what you call a hospitalist. Let me step back. I'm basically an internist. My training is in internal medicine. However, I chose to do hospital medicine, which essentially is internal medicine, but in the hospital. So I don't necessarily have my own private practice. I belong to a group that is usually employed by the hospital, and whenever a patient is hospitalized, then we actually take them from the ER, manage their acute situation. And if anything happens in the hospital acutely, we're also responsible for that. We also do consults. We run codes or any kind of emergencies in the hospital.
That's really cool. So it sounds like you're working as a frontline staff right now, or as what we have been labeling a frontline staff during this time. How's that experience been?
I would have to say it's been overwhelming. Definitely surreal. However, I think that there are different factors that are making it harder than we thought it would be. But I think I'm grateful for the hospital that I'm working with, because we have a fantastic team and we've been able to organize things fairly well.
Okay, that's phenomenal. So thank you for all of your work. We know that is, I'm sure, taxing, so we appreciate you, of course. So we can jump right in. We have collected some video submissions from our audience to really ask questions about how they can maintain their safety during this time. So I'm going to go ahead and play the first clip done by Melissa Ahmed.
Hello, my question is, I'm planning a wedding and I want everybody to be safe, but because of the pandemic that is happening right now, I was wondering what suggestions you might have to keep everybody at a social distance, but still be able to have a good time and celebrate on that special day.
So I would have to say, recognize that yes, it's a very special day. However, in light of the situation, my best suggestion would be actually to postpone the wedding and maybe do a Zoom ceremony, which of course is not the ideal. However, I think that would be the safest. Now, in terms of if that is not something that's not an option, then you would have to look at what makes the situation safer. So having the ceremony outside, having everything outside, basically, not inviting a lot of guests. Right now, the recommendations are no more than 10 people congregating. And the reason why is that you're basically decreasing the chances of having someone who's positive and asymptomatic in the group. So the larger your group is, then the higher the chances are that somebody in the group is going to be positive and maybe asymptomatic and spreading the virus. Weddings have been known to be super spreaders, so that's why I would caution everyone. Although it's a special day, it can be postponed.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. So it sounds like postponing may be kind of all of our best options right now, considering how likely it is the virus can get spread. And like you said, weddings being super spreaders, right? So
Correct. So you can get married, of course, and you can have the ceremony in front of everyone. I think that you have to be creative nowadays, and then have a celebration with everyone present, maybe a year from now.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. We appreciate you. And so we're going to be transitioning into our next set of questions. We'll go into Morgan Chandler, and she had a few questions, so you can kind of pick one or touch on all. But I'm getting ready to play her.
Hi, my name is Morgan Chandler, LCSW, and I currently live in Los Angeles, California. Some questions I might have regarding COVID-19 and the pandemic might be, how do I address my concerns with my employer? I'm an essential worker, so how do I have a conversation about comfortability and recommendations for the workplace? Some other questions might be, where do I access mental health services regarding COVID-19 and the stress related with the pandemic? Some other questions I might have are, if I do have a roommate, how do I have the conversation about what I'm comfortable with? How do we have conversations about the individuals that we let in our home or where we can go out on a daily basis?
Questions, very tough questions. I'll address the first one in terms of, because I think it's so important in terms of being an essential worker and your exposure. I would recommend that you get together with other coworkers and discuss the situation with your employer. First, I would get facts. So it's important to educate yourself on exactly what needs to be done. So PPEs, social distancing, and then also jot down all the concerns that you have regarding. I'm not sure what type of essential worker you are, but what you have seen that you think may put you at risk. But discuss all of this as a group, not as an individual with your employer. At least that's my suggestion. So I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, but
We understand we are at home, doing all of this. So,
so give me 1 second.
no problem.
So and then we can transition into what would you do with your roommates, say. I would say to be transparent about the situation. Again, you have to educate yourself. You have to see what actually puts you at a lower risk, because the risk is always there, no matter what, especially depending on what your roommate is doing and what her profession is, etc. But have an open conversation on how you can make sure that both of you are safe. So, and that you're both educated. If one person knows exactly what to do, whereas the other isn't informed, then you're obviously going to put yourself at risk. So the bottom line is to have ongoing communication, because this has been an ongoing virus that we knew nothing about, and things are evolving. So have a ongoing conversation about how you can both keep yourself safe. At the end of the day, this is the type of virus that essentially, if we do not do things collectively to protect ourselves, it actually doesn't work very well. So, for example, the mask. The mask is really protecting your neighbor, not necessarily protecting yourself as much. So it's important that you work together to go over what the recommendations are and try to work in that fashion. So there's a number of things that you can do depending on what your situation is. One is we're looking at your residential area. So should you keep the windows open? Should you have sanitizer around the house so that it is very, it's very close to you and you can actually use it on an ongoing basis? Should you wear masks in the house? Should you get tested on a weekly basis? So these are little things that you may want to discuss, and it really depends on where you're located, because there are some states where you can actually get free tests. And there are some states, from what I hear, where you actually have to pay for those tests. So that would make a difference. So I think the most important thing is essentially to communicate, have open conversations, be transparent. And if you think you've gotten in contact with someone, then please communicate with each other and possibly talk about quarantining, etc. I mean, I have heard people that actually stay in their rooms and they actually have no contact with their roommates. Of course, that's difficult, but sometimes you have to take those precautions. It also depends on, what medical history you may have. So that may you may want to actually stay elsewhere. I've had people who have left and stayed with their parents because they felt a little safer at the moment.
So it does sound like during the pandemic, it's really essential for us to have open communication with one another during this time.
Absolutely. I think as we've learned, there's so much information coming out, some of it incorrect, some of it factual. So it's important for us to educate ourselves and just communicate the information that we have. And also, and I guess this could probably transition into the mental health aspect, but just to talk to each other about our anxieties, our fears, so that we help each other out through this time. And when speaking about mental health, there's a lot of things that one can do. So I think the question was regarding where to get mental health help. So one of the you can connect with your primary care physician, ask for some recommendations. You can also connect with some local chapters, mental health chapters. Church is also another option. But then you can also do things for yourself that will help you out, such things as eating well, cutting out the sugar. You can exercise, something as simple as walking. And yes, of course, you're concerned about being in a crowd. So, of course, you want to try to walk when possibly there's less people around and wear your mask. But being outside, getting some sunlight is actually very therapeutic. Going out and say just staying in front of your house and maybe doing 10 squats, that actually will help you out. So there are little things that you can do. There are things such as writing down what you're grateful for, even though we're in a very insecure time. There's still things that you can be grateful for. And they say if you write 3 things down a day about what you wake up and you think about what you're grateful for, all those things may actually help you.
I'm so glad you touched on the mental health piece. I think that is so important during this time because we also know when our mental health is down, that can also have a great impact on our body. So I'm really glad that you touched on that point for sure.
That's very important. And it's actually important to recognize how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling anxious, actually recognize it to yourself, because then the next step is, well, what can I do to relieve those feelings?
Right. So we will be transitioning into our next question. She is also an essential worker. Her name is Joan Lewis, and so I will play her now.
My question is, how effective is it really to wear a mask if you are with a group of people and you're wearing one and the other people are not?
Fantastic question. So this is the thing about this virus. I think this virus is actually testing who we are as a community. Because essentially that mask that you're wearing is actually protecting all the other people that you're around. The mask protects you somewhat, but very little. And so that's the reason why, certain states and cities have mandated the mask, because that's how we protect each other. So you wearing your mask is actually protecting everyone else, and if hopefully they're wearing their mask, they're protecting you. I actually, my daughter had I guess, a enlightenment as she was going to a soccer tournament, where we were wearing a mask, and I would have to say that 90% of the folks there were not wearing their mask. And she said, well, the irony is that we're protecting them by taking that extra step. So unless we all work together, we're going to have a longer time with this virus. And I think that that's the most important factor here, is that we all need to recognize that although, yes, we're all individuals and we all like to have our freedom, but we're all within a society, we're all within a community. And if we all want us to do well, then we have to kind of protect each other. I'm hoping that people get that message a bit more.
Right.
I respect everyone's liberty, but liberty to a certain point.
Right.
So the mask actually protects everyone that you're around. It doesn't protect you as much unless you're wearing an N95, which are not very readable out there. Then they're not comfortable either to walk around outside. So I would send a message: mask, mask, mask.
Yes, and I concur. Everyone, please go out and get your masks. I really like what you said, is this is a time that is showing us who we are as people. And I think that's a statement that people can really hold on to through this time, when they are having that internal dialogue about their own liberty, right? But understanding that we are doing this to protect others. So I think that's a really important sentiment that you have left us with, for sure.
Yes.
Well, I thank you so much for your time today. We have learned so much from you, and hope to speak to you again in the future. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having this.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me also.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you for joining us in Healing and Wellness in Times of Crisis. Today we were able to talk to Dr. Mignon, and she gave us some amazing strategies and tools on how to maintain our safety and have some difficult conversations. Me and Dr. Mignon both had our furry friends participating in the filming today, so that was a lot of fun. But thank you again, and I will see you next time.